Hello, everybody. um, so it's an interesting time um, in history, and we're here. There's a lot of information, as I was, talking about earlier. There's a lot of it is, based off obviously me researching the transits and everything, but a lot of the information that's come through has actually been. I also am a channel. Um, I'm a channel, and there's been a lot of information related to this that has wanted to come through. So I really look forward to synthesizing this in a way that hopefully resonates with you all. And again, if you have questions, feel free to ask them in real time or afterwards or whatever feels right for you. And let's begin. So, okay. So let's start with, because obviously there's a lot going on, right? We just got off of an eclipse. The new year is happening in like a week. We have this grand conjunction that we've been hearing about for a long time. And a lot of people are like, what does that even mean? And if you've seen my posts on Instagram or, yeah, mostly Instagram, or we've spoken face to face or chat to chat, I haven't really spoken that much about the grand conjunction as an individual event, excuse me, because that energy, and it's funny because my friend mentioned this in a group chat earlier, has been around. Now, is that day significant? Yes. The energy, the lineup of that day and time, yes, super significant. But it's kind of just making more real that which we have already perhaps been tapping into, and I will explain what I mean by that. So before we get into New Year, Grand Conjunction, and even Age of Aquarius, which isn't right now, a lot of people have been saying, oh, this is the beginning of the Age of Aquarius. Not quite. But there is kind of like, we're getting like sneak peeks into the Age of Aquarius. And so I want to start just with speaking about what Aquarian energy is, because one thing that all of these things have in common, Age of Aquarius, Grand Conjunction, New Year, is that they all are very heavy with Aquarian energy. Okay. Aquarian energy, Saturn, and then we're going to speak about Uranus. Those three things. And then that ties into kind of like the year ahead. So 2021's looking interesting. And in order to speak about 2021, I just got to speak a little bit about 2020. So 2020, we had, for those of you that are on this call, perhaps some of you are familiar kind of with like Capricorn energy and what that means. And just as a little review, we had Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter. Pluto is still there in Capricorn. Why is this significant? When you're talking about Capricorn, we're talking about real time, real life, real structure. What do I mean by real? I mean 3D. Now, is 3D the only reality? No, but our past or somewhat current reality functions in that space. So it's the sense of limitation and density and heaviness, but also structure and foundation and support of the real world. So whether you're talking about the time space construct that we exist in, or you're talking about government, it's those structures that kind of give us the framework of how we live. Okay. So 2020, with these very heavy, strong, intense karmic planets traveling through Capricorn the whole year, and Saturn for 3 years, Pluto for 20 something years, but lining up. 2020 made us very aware of the density and limitation of reality in terms of how we were operating in it. Okay. The word density is super significant. I'm going to come back to that quite a bit. I just saw somebody banging on their chest and it made me laugh. So Saturn rules Capricorn. Saturn is also the traditional ruler of Aquarius. So Saturn is like, was just at home for the last 3 years and is now going into another more progressive expression of itself. Literally right now, it's in 0 degrees. It's at the beginning of Aquarius. And so when we, again, this density, what's interesting about density is, for instance, if you think about water, when water is its most dense, it's ice, right? So you have water that goes into ice cubes, and now it looks separate from one another. It's still water. It's still the same substance. It's still made of the same exact thing, but we perceive it as this separate thing. And so the energy, and it literally 2020 made us become separate. We were already separate. We already were acting separate. So then, you know, universe, God came up in the mix and said, okay, we're going to make you aware of how separate your mind is behaving in a sense. So we became separate. We had quarantine, we had isolation, distancing, right? And then what happens? We had to get creative and connect in other ways, like we are right now. That's kind of where the Aquarian energy comes into play. Because the thing is with Capricorn, and the thing is with these structures in 2020 and Pluto especially, which is all about endings and alchemy and death and transformation in Capricorn, is us realizing we have reached the limit of those constructs. We've reached the limit as far as the way our economy works. We've reached the limit in terms of seeing how our government works. We've reached the limit in terms of the hierarchical structures that we function in this reality. We see, oh, we've reached the limit. It's not working. And that even goes into time and space. We've reached the limit into perceiving time as this linear thing, right? We've reached the limit thinking that we can only connect in space physically, and have now understood, oh man, wait, I can connect to you and you can be on the other side of the planet, and not just technologically, but even from a heart space. And so we've become very real with our limitations. Saturn also is your bones. It's your physical body. So we also became very aware of our mortality, right? COVID, whether you want to say it's a pandemic that is of fear, a pandemic of a disease, a pandemic of both. We've become very aware of the limits of the material world. So what does that do? That says, oh, well, we need to change something. Here comes 2021, right? Now, a lot of people are saying, okay, we're stepping into the age of Aquarius. So let me break something down real quick. An age is about a 2,150 year period. So it's not like you're in one age, a day happens, and you're in a new age. Doesn't work that way. There's like a few 100-year transition cusp period. And we are at the end of this age, and there's specific science as to when the actual official age begins, but that's not for another few 100 years. I will say, probably in about 5 years from now, we're going to start feeling a little bit more like we can actually conceive what this future looks like. And in around 20 something or so years, when Pluto goes into Aquarius, comes out of Aquarius, then I think we're going to feel a little more like, oh, okay, I see this trajectory, all the possibilities. Right now, we are literally in that, we're in an interesting little in-between situation. And that's exciting because we get to be the ones to plant those seeds. Now, is it gratifying to the ego? Not necessarily. If you're super present, yeah, because then you get to receive those downloads, or you get to receive that information or hope or possibility or dreams in real time. But if you are looking for the entire world to shift and change and governments be eradicated, overthrown, and rebuilt in a week, it ain't gonna happen. Okay, this is we got to think this is the long game. you know? Like if you signed up to the light worker squad, you got to understand you're playing the long game. And it's not really a long game because this is all the infinite now. This is now. It's all now. I'm going to keep saying that. It is all now. And just a little tidbit in terms of 2021, I think that's one of the things that are going to be really strongly felt. And I think we've already started feeling it. Time is not going to feel the same. A lot of us already feel that way because of the way our schedules and routines have shifted. But I don't just mean in that way. I mean like when it comes to deja vu or dreams, or how you could be in a meditation for 5 minutes and it feels like you were there for 2 hours, or you could be in a meditation for 2 hours and it feels like you were there for 5 minutes. That, I just got chills. That's gonna happen. I don't, it may not happen to everybody at the same time, but those things, and I don't know about y'all, but I live for those things. I love those moments. I love those moments where I stop and I say, oh shit, this is not linear at all. Or noticing the web of how something 10 years is related to something 5 years ago, is related to something now, is related to something you thought when you were 5, is related. Those webs of seeing how the information connects, that's going to happen more. And I know I'm talking more in like the quantum side of things, but that makes me happy. And I think also those moments and when we can honor and tap in and tune in and acknowledge that's also going to help us deal with the quote unquote 3D that will be shifting, crumbling, updating, because it is. 2021's bumpy. It's exciting, it's exhilarating, but it's shocking and it's bumpy. Those are key words for 2021. It's, this 2020 was shocking in terms of like, oh my God, I can't believe we're here. But it was very dense. It was very serious. The energy was very kind of like, yeah, we thought 2020 was bumpy, but 2020 was a lot more kind of like, it had this seriousness to it, right? I don't know if 2021 is going to feel necessarily as serious as it is more going to be more like shock, update, revolution, shock, bombing, natural disaster, epiphany, truth, spiritual awakening, another bombing. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that as a doom and gloom thing, but we are now talking about, so to segue, so I talked a little bit about Saturn. I haven't really spoken so much about Aquarius, but these are the two co-rulers of Aquarius. So Saturn is the traditional structures, 3D, right? The world. Then you go next sign, Aquarius, or that's Capricorn into Aquarius, and we have Saturn, and so then we have Uranus. And it's interesting that these two planets co-rule Aquarius because they're so different. They're so different in the way they express their energy, but they are similar in that they are signs that deal very much with the collective. So you're going to hear things like the collective. You hear that a lot in the spiritual community in general, but specifically right now, it really is about the collective. And 2020, again, with COVID, still an age of Pisces. Pisces also deals with the collective. One thing that was very specific about COVID that is huge takeaway is it made us realize that we're a collective. Whether you want to believe it or not, whether you are your brother's keeper or not, whether you like your neighbor or not, guess what? We're all affected by stuff and we're all connected. Whether we like it or not, we learned very quickly in 2020, hey, guess what? We all affect each other. Whether it's through disease, through fear, through media, but we're all connected. And so when you're talking about signs like Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, specifically, they're literally one right after the other, we are speaking about the collective. And so now Uranian energy. Uranus, I'm such a dork. Uranian energy says, hey, you know what? That system, it's not working. It's old. It needs an update. So we're going to shoot some lightning bolts, some truth down, shatter it, so a new one can be rebuilt. Uranus energy in a nutshell. Uranus, from a mythological standpoint, ties in with the mythology of Prometheus stealing fire from the gods. And the Uranian mythological aspect is that the story goes that he stole the knowledge directly from the gods, surpassed, the levels of man, went straight to the gods and brought it down to humanity. So this is like, when you're talking about Uranian energy, the thing with Uranian energy, and I personally love Uranian energy, but it is pure truth, pure information from the highest realms, which means it doesn't care about our feelings so much. It's like, oh, you're still attached to that story? Here's a shocking epiphany. It could be beautiful. Now, if you're a person who's already willing to do the work, willing to kind of shed the layers and peel and do this, the shocks they can be exciting. They can be enlivening. Uranus also deals with pure genius, those, when you talk about like those waves of genius insight, that's Uranian energy. It comes down like a bomb, literal or figurative. So the reason this is significant so much for 2021 is we have these two planets that rule Aquarius, and they're going to be making a tension aspect to each other the entire year. Okay? This is called a square in astrology. Now, squares, not bad. If you go into traditional older texts, they'll say, oh, terrible energy. It's not that, it's that it's energy that there's tension because it wants to break through. It's that creative energy. And if any of you are creatives, you know that a lot of times the thing that pushes you or that gives you the biggest impulse to perhaps create is when you are in that moment of that heaviness or that pain. And then you're like, I got to get this out. I got to paint. I got to move my body. I got to start a business. I got to start a nonprofit. I got to do something with this. And then you do it. And it's like, oh my gosh, this amazing new thing flourishes and it can change your entire reality, right? So we're not going to just like throw that away and say, oh my God, I don't want to do that. That energy is the energy that births worlds. And so we're at this point where like as long as I've been alive, and really a long time, especially the last few years, the majority of the world, and especially within this country, since we are in the United States, is not necessarily content with how things have been going economically, governmentally, the things we normalize, the way healthcare is ran, the way our 9-to-5 structure runs. Like we're not happy. It's not working. The structure's not working. It's making us sick. It's making our planet sick. We're just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I hate my job. I don't like my relationship. That's so common. But yet it's like, we're at this point where it's like, okay, you're over it? Yeah, you want something new? Universe is like, you want something new? Okay, here's your opportunity. So be about it. This is that moment. December 21st is that moment where it's like, be about it. Like, be about it. Last year on January 12th, I had an event and I kept telling everybody, I was like, let's all say together, we got this. Because the transits look like this is going to be heavy. And this year it's be about it. Be about the change you want to see in the world. because it's exciting. It's an exciting opportunity. So the grand conjunction, why is this specific? Well, we have Saturn and Jupiter. Jupiter's in the mix here. Jupiter's like been in the mix. Jupiter magnifies everything. So whenever something's going on in the sky and Jupiter comes along, it adds optimism, but it also just kind of like blows it up as grand as possible. So we have Saturn and Jupiter at 0 degrees, significant because anytime you have planets at 0 degrees at the beginning of a sign, that's a new cycle. It's also significant. I was looking at the numerology for this for Monday, and it's a 1 day, which is also super cool because it's like literally new beginnings. And on that day, we have Mars square Pluto. So that square is that tension aspect, like I said, and Mars is our will. And this is why I keep saying the be about it thing, because Mars squaring Pluto, which is the endings, the transformation, the alchemy. It's like, okay, this, do you want this? Mars is like, do you have the will to see this through? If not, this can be a very, and I'm not going to say it's not tumultuous for us in general. Like, just because you're a light worker doesn't mean that you don't have pain and suffering and have adversity. That's not what I'm saying at all. But there's only so much resistance before it just pushes back. And when you're dealing with energies like Mars, which is pure aggression and assertive energy, and Pluto, which is death and regeneration and endings and power, your personal will is not as strong as the god of the underworld. Like, it's pretty strong, but it's gonna be a lot more supported if it's working in tandem with that Plutonian energy. And I don't even want to say that your personal will isn't as strong. You know what? It could be as strong, but man, that's a waste of a lot of amazing energy. I'll put it like that. That's a waste of amazing, pure fire, drive, and will. You want to use that. Use it. So let me look at my notes. So yeah, Aquarius. So let's talk about Aquarius. Saturn and Uranus, both co-rulers, right? And I talked a little bit about those planets. So Aquarius, it's funny because when I think about Capricorn and Aquarius, I feel like these are the two signs that most represent our political parties. Right now, specifically the shadow aspects of our political parties. Aquarius is supposed to be the progressive system, the reformative system. It's still a system, but it thinks about the future. It wants to include humanitarianism. It's, you know, all for one, one for all. It's the water bear that wants to give water to all of mankind, right? Very in line with progressive values. Capricorn is traditional. More hierarchical. It's, you know, pick yourself up from your bootstraps, work hard, set goals. Okay, more conservative, right? Now, we are, as much as I would love to say, oh, yay, Age of Aquarius, we're going to these Aquarian ideals, we're going to be dealing a lot with the shadows of these planets. Now, we've already seen the shadow of good old Capricorn for the last few years. By literally, and this is not, you know, I'm not taking a political stance. I'm just talking about the actual energies that are being transmitted and also being pulled up for us to face and deal with. Because Capricorn also deals with authority and like that very conservative, almost kind of not bully in an Aries way, but bully, I'm the boss. I'm the boss energy. Okay. So we've been seeing that. We've been dealing with that for the last few years, right? Okay, cool. I don't have to explain that. But Aquarius, you know, the shadow side of Aquarius is interesting because this is when you get into utilitarian control. And there's a big difference between unity consciousness and stripping away the expression of the individual and making everybody the same. And that's a very, when Aquarius gets shadowy, it can go in that direction. It can go, I mean, it's really like the whole New World Order. That's very Aquarian. That's an Aquarian thing. And so Aquarius is awesome because we are dealing with like quantum energy and 5D and humanitarianism and community groups and understanding webs of information and updating the system and updating our way of learning information and knowing that there's change that needs to happen, right? But a lot of times what happens, and we've seen this happen over and 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 over again, is one system happens, it's no good. Another system that's completely polarized opposite direction comes in and says, hey, you're no good. Everything you do is bad. And then it goes the complete opposite other extreme. And then that's no good. And then we're like, oh man, shucks, this is still not working. So now that I've spoken a little bit about Aquarius, I want to just tie this into the age of Aquarius, and how this ties in and why I'm speaking more about the shadow. So we're still in the age of Pisces. All right. In order to shift ages, you have to transcend out of an age. This is about integration. It's not about suppressing, making everything the same. It's about integrating, very different, because one still has the density, one doesn't. The shadow of the age of Pisces, which started around the time 0 BC, or literally like year 1, right, was the church. Good old church, which, you know, in its highest expression would be love, unity consciousness, spirituality, mysticism, all that jazz. In its shadowiest aspect, it's blind faith, self-sacrifice, martyrism, more blind faith, which kind of then gave way to the rise of the patriarchy and patriarchal structures dominating our society for the last 2,000 years, right? Okay, cool. So now, in order to move into the age of Aquarius, we have to get these good nuggets from the age of Pisces. And these good nuggets, which we're on our way to integrating, are realizing, hey, we're all connected. Hey, we have more in common than we think. Hey, you know what? I want to forgive all that shit that happened between you, between me, between the past. Now, why is forgiveness? I'm going to talk a lot about forgiveness. Why is forgiveness really significant here? One, because, well, we just had this eclipse a couple days ago, which aspected Neptune, which is the ruler of Pisces, and happened in Sagittarius, other most religious sign that can also deal with blind faith and righteousness and dogma. But in order to transcend again out of Pisces, we have to bring in the gold of Pisces, which is forgiveness. Who are we forgiving? Well, the message that I got was, and I said, oh, snap. Part of that forgiveness means forgiving the structures that oppressed us to even begin with, that got us here now. Forgiving the church, forgiving the perhaps dogmatic parents, cultures, societies, religions, what have you, that you grew up in, that traumatized you, that made you think this or fooled you or oppressed, all that stuff. Now, why do we have to forgive? For you. And I know people always say, oh, you got to forgive for you so you're not holding it. Well, I'm going to break it down in an Aquarian scientific kind of a way, because we are moving into Aquarian energy. So I'm going to keep it science-y for y'all. We have our heart, our psyche, our light body, our energy body, right? We have this field. And it has thoughts, it has emotions, it has tethers to other people, other realms. Energy is real. We have it. We're made out of it. Thoughts are things. Some thoughts are more dense or heavy than others, right? We have a lot on our mind, we get a headache. We feel sad, we got a lot of shit going on that we haven't let go of, we feel depressed. We got a lot of stuff that we're anxious about, we feel anxiety. So thoughts affect us. They affect our physical selves. They affect our physical reality. Thoughts carry density. Anger, hatred, resentment are heavy thoughts. And they take up a lot of space in your field, which is why if you're in a consistent state of anger, consistent state of resentment, you'll get health problems. It'll fuck with your health. So part of loosening up the density is forgiveness. Huge. What happens when you forgive? You get to number one, now you get to integrate. Now you have more space. What happens when you have more space? You can pull in more information. What happens also when you have more space? Your nervous system isn't being obstructed, because part of this Saturn Uranus, and Uranus rules the nervous system, and we have the Gemini North Node right now the whole year, which also deals with the nervous system. We want our nervous systems to be able to hold more different energy, hold more light, essentially, which is the ascension into 5D. If you want to ascend into 5D, where you are not bound by 3D constructs, or even the thought of 3D constructs, it means literally lightning, whether we're talking about light, like actual refracted light, or light like the weight. You gotta free up space. You gotta lighten that nervous system up. And forgiveness is huge for that. What does that also do? Well, then we get to feel more connected to one another in healthier ways. Why? Because we know we're all connected. Even from a quantum standpoint, we know an atom is 99.9999999% space. So we perceive things as separate and dense objects, but we know that that's a limitation on our perception. Scientifically, we're mostly space, vibrating very, very quickly. These little particles vibrating so tight and quickly that we perceive it as separation. When we are dense, when we hold resentment, and I hurt you, even though I know I'm connected to you, that is literally like me chopping my own hand off and saying that I'm hurting something separate from me. For me not to be hurt by hurting you, when in fact I'm hurting myself because we're one, that's how dense I am. That's how separate I feel. So I also invite this as an opportunity to understand that those who really do hurt others, truly, really and truly, perceive themselves as so separate and so dense from another that they're willing to hurt themselves. Scientifically speaking, right? We can get into all the mystical, heart-based, everything, but if we're just talking the science, like, I'm connected to you. I hurt you, I hurt me. We're of the same, we're just this amorphous mass of energy. So we gotta forgive if we want to actually move into the age of Aquarius. If we actually want the constructs that run this planet to shift up, we gotta forgive. And a real good place to start with that is with ourselves. I'm not saying the resentment is gonna disappear like that. I would never ask that of anybody. I have my own angers and hurts and pains and triggers. Believe me, I understand. What I am offering is a moment to create that space for yourself where you at least invite the opportunity to say, where can I forgive myself? Where can I forgive somebody else? Where can I ask for forgiveness? And if there's resentment, if there's anger, if there's pain, hey, that's okay. Sit with it. But at least you're starting to untangle and unravel some of those knots. Because if we want to create a new world, which is what we're trying to do here, right? We got to lighten up this density, because all year that Saturn Uranus square is going to be bringing the light. So it's either like you loosen up the density willingly of your own free will, because we do have free will, or Uranus comes along and says, wake up, I'm going to fry your nervous system. I'm going to shock you. I'm going to amaze you. You're going to have this end, and you're going to have this begin, and you're going to have this thing, you know, shift up the whole situation. Because right now, this year, more than anything, I will say this year, we're learning how to think. We're learning how to adapt our mind to a higher frequency, because your mind, your thoughts, is your nervous system. But we don't know how to think right now. We have Gemini North Node all year. It's been there for the last 6 months or so, which is our karmic lesson. Rules information. And Aquarius is the web or grid of that information. We can even say that, you know, the internet is Aquarius, and Gemini is every single person's computer sending data. Okay, there is an information overload, which I'm sure we all have been experiencing the last few months. Now, why is this bad? Why is this good? Well, it's bad if you're not grounded, right? It's overwhelming. What do I believe? I don't know what to believe. I don't know what to do. Is this right? Is this wrong? Why is it good? Because it's saying, hey, guess what? You have the faculty within you to be able to use something else called your third eye. Guess what? Uranus also rules the third eye. So that's what we're here to do this year. We are here to activate that third eye so we can actually start trusting our minds. Because guess what? If we keep going to the government, to the media, to social media, to your neighbor, to some, it's not going to be, we're going to be fried. I've been fried. I'm sticking my feet in the dirt a few times a week to keep my ass grounded. I don't know about y'all, but it is like, just the signals are, the amperage has just gone up, especially since the summer. And that amperage is going to keep on building. The information is going to get wild this year. So this is how we come back to self, and we learn, oh wait, there's government, there's media, there's this organization, there's this people, there's all these, you know, facets. There's the CDC, there's so-and-so, there's so-and-so, and then there's God. And then there's your angels. And then there's your guides. And then there's your ancestors. And then there's not even that. We can, you know what? If that's too mystical for you, fine. Then there's the present moment. What's going on right in front of you? What are you feeling in your body? What are your dreams telling you? What's happening when you breathe? Because Gemini also rules the breath, which immediately connects to what? Our thoughts, our quality of thought. It is very important to breathe, to get grounded, because the quality of your thoughts is what is being purified and updated this whole year. And that's fucking awesome. It's so tight, okay? Like, it's amazing. Can it be scary? Yeah. But, you know, I heard this one channel who he made a video and he was like, this is how our angels see us. Oh my God, I'm so scared of like having my dream job. Oh my God, I don't want to do it. Oh my God, I'm so scared of having the love of my life. Oh my God. That's what it is, you know, and that's okay. That's okay. Because why? Because our nervous systems have been traumatized, right? Our nervous systems, our sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight. And whether it's because of trauma that you received, or I don't want to say received, trauma that you had to in life, and not even trauma. You may not have experience direct trauma, just societal standards, societal conditioning, right? All right, let's say societal conditioning. How about the family system you're a part of? The nervous system, the memories, the trauma that your family, your parents, grandparents, 25 generations back. Dude, history has been gnarly. Our nervous system is tired. It is taxed out. So our nervous systems need an update. And that update can kind of rock us a little bit at first. But it's also, I mean, I'll give a personal account. I have a lot of strong Uranian aspects in my chart and strong Gemini, which is very pronounced this year. When I was younger, when I was 20 years old, I had a mild stroke. Okay. I had a mild stroke at 20. I had another nervous episode like that at 26. Had to wear a heart monitor for heart palpitations when I was in high school. My nerves were like just shot. And then I realized, okay, if this is all energy and my breath, and I pulled myself out of the stroke using breath and my mind, straight up. Visualization of my breath, because I said, I was stressed, I was extremely stressed out, and my brain shut down. My motor skills were even impaired for a few weeks afterwards. And so I thought to myself, okay, if my thoughts are so strong that they are literally shutting my nervous system down, and the thought is not traveling up and down, it's like a generator that's getting a fuse blown. We're this generator, right? Nervous system sends signals to your whole body. You get the information in your brain. Your breath helps to dictate it. Cool. Gives it new light, and new life. But if there's a block, if there's a massive block in that generator, you get a stroke, you get sick, you get a disease, you get something, especially if you're talking like shocking things. So you move the energy, you work with the energy. You work with your nervous system, which can be as simple as breathing, as simple as grounding, right? Because when we think about electrical systems, they got to have a ground. They have to have a ground. You don't want to be a loose wire. Okay, so now that I've talked about the Grand Conjunction, because it really is, and really this age that we're stepping into, we are going to build a new earth, but it will require personal responsibility. And understanding this organization isn't going to save you. This government isn't going to save you. Sagittarius in the South Node wants to travel, move someplace else and say, oh, it's going to be better there. No, it's not. Because guess what? We're a collective. Escaping isn't going to save us. Personal responsibility. And the responsibility doesn't look, it's funny because when I used to think about spiritual work, yeah, it has hard moments for sure. But I'll tell you this much, those moments like a few days ago when I was channeling angels crying on the floor because I felt so much light and literal like love, I can't even put it into words, make all that hard shit worth it. It's super worth it, and the work doesn't look necessarily the way we think it's going to look. It's not like, oh my God, you need to be a monk tomorrow. No, it's not that. It's really not. It's honestly being honest. It's loving yourself. It's breathing deep. It's saying no to bullshit. Okay, so let's go through the month by month real quick just to see how this plays out. Okay, so January. We're almost in January, right? This week is going to be strong, like I said. But I really feel like the new year isn't going to feel like a new year until January 13th. We have a new moon that day. It's going to be hitting Pluto. We're going to feel like, okay, something shifted. We're also preparing for inauguration, which I know a lot of people are excited about. And Also, I will say it's interesting because we had that grand conjunction on January 12th of last year. So it's literally a year and a day. So it's like, oh, Happy New Year, January 13th. Also my mom's birthday. um, she's been showing up in the astrology. But January 13th, I really feel like that's where we're going to feel the new moon. Now, inauguration week, and I know I'm talking a lot about American perspective. Obviously, there are things happening all over the world, but we're all in the United States here, I think so. And so we're feeling it. This is part of our relative reality, right? That inauguration day, that third week of January, it's just that, I mean, we know who we have as our president-elect right now. The egos are going to be really on display, which we already knew. I didn't need to do astrology to tell you that. But it is a full moon in Leo, drama, squaring Uranus, more drama, sudden change. And there could be some trickle to this, some explosive trickle. I use that word literally or figuratively. I don't want you to focus on that, but I do feel that energy, whether we're talking about the bigger forum stage or you're talking about your own personal life, be kind to yourself that day. Ground, end of January, just kind of like understand that there's a lot of tension happening in the collective and you don't need to play out that drama in your life. Take that moment to take care of yourself. I'll just say that. And then we move into the end of January. January 30th, we have a Mercury retrograde in Aquarius. So more Aquarian. We're not even in Aquarius season yet, but the planets are like in Aquarius. They're there. They're like there all year. Mercury's retrograding in Aquarius real quick. And I think a lot of this is us thinking, hey, did we make the right choice? I know this election was not exactly like anybody was hyped for either party, for the most part. I mean, some people were, but for the most part, people were not like overwhelmed with joy and what the future will look like based off our options. And I think with COVID, I think with talk of the vaccine, I think with a lot of things, and as information starts coming out more, people are going to start saying, I don't know if I actually am on board with this. I need more information. I don't know if I'm on board with a quarantine. I don't know if I'm on board with a vaccine. I don't know if that's right for me. I don't know if this system is right. And I'm not saying there is a right or wrong. I'm just saying I do feel like people are going to start questioning, especially in January, like the policies that are coming up. Another word, big word for this year is reform. Whether we're talking policy reform, I mean, Capricorn and Aquarius literally rule government. So that's another reason I am speaking a little bit about government more so. But it also could be reforming your life, and specifically the reform of the groups that you are a part of. I'm going to say that again. Reform of the groups you are part of. That means friends. So end of January, you could also be like, yo, I don't know if maybe I've outgrown this friend group. Maybe this group I feel like I'm a part of, like, I don't know if our ideals line up. And that's okay. Totally okay. And it doesn't mean you're right or they're wrong or they're right and you're wrong. It just means, hey, you know what? We may be shifting a little differently. Okay. So that Mercury retrograde, I think, is going to have a lot to do with that. And then we shift into February. I think February is a little quieter, to be honest. Well, actually, not completely. Actually, that's not true. It'll be more of an spread out energy over a month as opposed to specific days, if that makes sense. Because that Saturn-Uranus square is official in February. And it's there for a few days. And this dance between, It's not just Saturn and Uranus squaring the whole year. They're going to be going back and forth, Jupiter, the sun, but there's like literally a planet making an opposition, which is also a tension aspect or a square to Uranus the whole year. It's crazy. It's like the whole year. And Uranus, let me say this too. The reason why this is also even more significant for our actual reality, again, is because it's in Taurus and it's been there for a few years and it's going to be there for another 3.5 years or so. And Taurus is also Earth sign, Earth, fixed Earth, literally the most immovable sign of the zodiac. It does not want to change. It's stubborn. So if you think about Taurus as a fixed Earth sign, it's like a mountain, right? That's like when we think about nature, what's the most like immovable, grounded object you can think of? A big ass mountain. And then Uranus is a lightning bolt hitting that mountain the entire, well, for the last 3.5 years and for another 3.5 years. So that mountain is getting chipped away. So while Capricorn is like the government and the banking system, Taurus is the actual money. So when we saw Uranus go into Taurus, this is when cryptocurrency started becoming more popular. And it's affecting a lot about our understanding of value. What do we value? What are we willing to sacrifice for our values? Are these values actually our values, or are they your family's values, your government's values, your culture's values? What are your values? That is what Uranus and Taurus is trying to get us to understand. Because if you want a new world, but you still value old shit, it's not going to add up. Not gonna add up. And that doesn't mean for you to go beat yourself up about that. You know, just because you want this new world, but you still maybe are struggling with a relationship or an addiction or a pattern that's not serving you. I'm not saying like you're bad, you're wrong, change tomorrow. That is not how healing works. What I am saying though is it's a good time, and this is the opportunity to really get serious about what am I willing to step into a higher version of myself and trust that process. That process does not have to be lonely. It does not have to be grueling. That process also creates the opportunity for new friendships, for new forms of tribe, for new communities, for love like you have never felt before, because vulnerability is interesting in that at first it can be extremely scary, right? When you have this like shadow or thing you're ashamed of, right? And you have somebody there and you want to open up and you're scared and you're like, oh, I don't know. They're going to judge me. You're judging yourself. And then when you let that shadow be seen and the person receives it, and even if they don't receive it, just the fact that you have the courage to do so for yourself creates this opportunity for an intimacy you never even thought was possible. And true connection occurs. And some of that forgiveness happens, and some of that creating space happens, and some of that, Piscean connectivity, divine love happens. Because even if they don't receive it, the fact that you did it for yourself is unconditional love for you. You created space. Awesome. You let something go. You integrated. It can be a scary process. We have people to make that smoother. Aquarius also rules friends. So this is really important to get clear on those friends you have in your life and how your friendships are supporting you, and vice versa. Right? Like, how are we going to build a government if our friends suck? Like, you want to build a new healthcare system, but you got shitty friends? Like, you got inauthentic friendships? No, it ain't going to work, honey. It ain't going to work. Like, you know what I'm saying? I see people, and it's no judgment. But again, we're also so upset about the patriarchy. Well, let's get some matriarchal values into the mix. What are matriarchal values? The unseen, heart-to-heart connection, intimacy, faith, Or not even faith. I'm not even going to say that. The unseen. We're just going to say the unseen. Spirituality, emotions, valuing emotions, non-linear things. So if we want to dismantle the patriarchy, we actually got to have some matriarchal values pop up in the mix. Okay? Which means honoring half of our other self. This isn't just for women. This is for men and women. We all have feminine and masculine. You know? But we're so external. Or that's the other thing I was going to say. The matriarchal value. What else? The inner world. The internal. There's a whole world happening inside of you that is just as broad and infinite as everything external. So if your home life is a hot mess, but you're out in the streets petitioning for change in the world, it is time to take a moment, ground, and do a little bit of inner work. Because each and every single one of us resonates energy. We resonate. We have ripples. Every single moment generates a ripple, a timeline, infinite timelines. Every single moment. That's very much Gemini North Node. All of the details, all of them, every single moment, every single moment. Your moments count. The choices you make, every moment counts. But why are you making your choices? Are you making them based out of fear and conditioning, or are you making them based off of a clear mind? That means being brave. To you. Some friends are going to say, I don't get it. You're being weird. And then there'll be other people that are like, yo, what's up, Starseed fam? You know, they'll be like, oh shit, we out here building a new earth. They don't get it, but that's cool. We're here resonating in divine love. Like, it's tight. It's awesome. I promise. Okay, so let's keep it moving. February into March. Okay, March things get weird. All right, March is weird. I'm gonna take a sip of water. Hold on, because it's a watery ass month. Pisces season, yep. Pisces season is always weird for me because I have so much I do actually have pretty strong Neptune energy, but it makes a lot of funky aspects to all my Virgo, Gemini, Sag stuff. And it's not exactly prime time for communication, like ever. You know, the first 3 weeks of the month, it's literally all water and air energy. It's so much water and air, which is not grounded at all. Like fire isn't necessarily grounded, but at least it's direct. Earth is grounded. Water and air is like, hi, I'm mist. I'm everything and nothing, you know? Like you can't grab me, you can't touch me, but you feel my weight. You feel me trickling into your mind, because Neptune in Pisces also deals with the media. And we have Neptune actually in Pisces. It's in there. And this ties in again with the forgiveness thing that I was talking about. This is going to be super highlighted in March. We're going to have to forgive. Probably because of all the shit that we're going to be triggered with in February. Okay. March is a time for forgiveness. Get on your Christ consciousness tip, everybody. For real. Well, that's actually ties in with the whole Age of Pisces thing as well. Because when we think about 5D is Christ consciousness. And it doesn't matter what religion or spiritual belief you ascribe to. I'm just talking about the consciousness. What that energy stood for in its highest expression. Is like this, forgive them for they know not what they do. Oh my God, that's so amazing. You know, like, hey, I still love y'all. You're fucking, and I'm not saying we're supposed to be martyrs, but because there's a big difference between throwing yourself into the fire and trying to save somebody. That ain't your job. We got enough, it's enough work. Self-work is a full-time job. You know, we're not here to throw ourselves into the fire, but it's another thing to say, hey, you know what? They don't know. They just don't know. You know, they're in pain. And I see their pain. Now, what's one way, again, to see that pain? To create space. Because sometimes when someone's right here, it's very close to see somebody's pain when they're literally like right here. So if you're having trouble, especially come March, having compassion for somebody, whether it's a group of people, whether it's a friend, a lover, number one, that's a warning shot from the heavens that your cup of compassion has been dried out and you need to have more compassion for yourself first. Because if you're having trouble having compassion for other people, it's because you're still holding on to a lot of pain. There's no space. There's not enough space. You understand now how that space creation ties in with the compassion, ties in with the, okay, ties in with patience too, because patience also has a lot to do with the dissolving of time. We're dissolving the barriers, we're dissolving the time, but we have to take space. So whether you're taking internal space, going deeper into your meditations, you know, some of us can't create physical space because the person we're pissed off at lives with us. Or physical space, taking the space to create compassion. And this is going to really be highlighted. I would suggest, you know, there's two sides to March. There's like, oh, compassion, love, divinity. And then there's also just plain confusion. Over optimism. Delusion. So if you are around people and you see people who are not grounded, who are confusing you, take some the news. You're going to probably want to take a break with the news in general, but in March, it's going to be like too much. The new moon in the middle of the month. Well, actually, yeah, that first week, the sun squaring the North Node plus Mars is going into Gemini. We're going to be like, yo, I want clear information. I think we're going to start getting pissed off about not having the information we need. Which is then going to give us the opportunity to either, again, connect to this higher spiritual place and start calling on assistance and surrendering to that higher spiritual place, or it can just make us feel like giving up or absolutely confused. You don't need to be confused. Moment by moment, breath by breath. And if you are confused, hey, it's okay. It's passing. It's temporary. Yeah, then Mercury with Pisces. Yeah, but there is an opportunity. I will say, as March progresses, there really is an opportunity to like really get some spiritual insight. It's making contacts to Pluto. It's making nice aspects to Pluto. Mercury does not like to be in Pisces. But when it's making good aspects to Pluto, it's like you can do some deep ass spiritual work at that time. Then last week of March, the energy goes and shifts real strong, real fast. Last week of March, we're at the equinox. Spring has sprung. We're in Aries energy. And, you know, I think this is when we really are like, enough. I think this is when it starts. I think we really start getting frustrated at the end of March. And this frustration, you know, Martian energy is warrior energy. And you can be a warrior in traffic on I-95. Or you can be a spiritual warrior and be your most authentic self. Because this full moon at the end of March, we got the sun, we got Venus, we have Chiron, all on top of each other, all in Aries, bringing out our insecurity. I think this is when we really stop also trying to appease people in our relationships. If you have coworkers, if you have a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a partner, whatever, a husband, a wife, a parent, a child, whoever, that you have been afraid to rock the boat with. I think this is when it gets clear where we gotta cut the shit, where the diplomacy is, and this could show up on the political stage too. Diplomacy could go out the fucking door. You know, diplomacy could go out the door. So be authentic, but don't chop any heads off. Okay. It's making a nice aspect to Saturn. So if you work with the energy in a mature way, this can help build reform, right? Nothing ever happens in our personal lives or even in the political world or in the world if people just follow the status quo. Somebody's got to stand the fuck up. But there's a difference between throwing a Molotov cocktail into a crowd and or organizing, you know, a protest or a treaty or something and actually putting energy behind it. Very different, both very effective. Now, am I saying any judgment to those that do throw the Molotov cocktails? No, because I understand, again, these are reflections of all of the things that we have collectively that we're just bringing up. This is shadow work continued. The difference is last year was shadow work and the thick, shadowy, dark shit. We're kind of in this space now where it's like equal parts shadow, equal parts light. This is another reason why December 21st is very significant, because this is the day, the solstice is the day where the light starts to increase. So literally light, 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 light increasing. We get to increase the light. We get to start seeing it. And then the shadows don't become so scary. We get to welcome the light. We get to start working with the light, which is also the future. Aquarius rules the future. Deals with future goals, future visions, dreams. And not dreams like at night, like your dreams. Like, oh, what would you do if you could do anything in 20 years? And then let's move into April. April is saucy. April is a saucy month, y'all. Oh my God. April's so crazy. Have a physical outlet for all the shit you're going to be feeling. Okay? Like, some of you guys may be super chill, you know? But April in general, it's Aries time. It's spring. Things are popping up. We just got out of this relationship or decided to go to therapy or whatever. But like, decisions are being made in April. It is time. We do not have time to fuck around anymore. Period. Point blank, period. And I think people are going to start demanding more information. It's going to go from people being annoyed with the lack of information to starting to demand information from the powers that be. I hope so. I hope so. And I hope it starts becoming clear, but I don't think it's going to be clear, honestly, until like more late summer. Let's see. We got Mars square Neptune, new moon. Okay, there's a lot going on, but I'm going to say the highlight of the wow moment of April is the full moon on April 27th. This is shocking. This is shocking, and the same day that happens, Pluto goes retrograde. So if you think you're perfect, or not you, but if somebody thinks, oh my God, I've done all the healing work I need to do. No, sorry. Let's go again. Because when Scorpio aspects come in the mix, this is a full moon in Scorpio. Full moon in Scorpios. I always say this. Full moon in Scorpios, I'm like, anybody could get touched. You think you're untouchable? Full moon in Scorpio says, no, guess what? Your psyche has another layer you didn't know about. And there's some more shadow work to do. But again, you have the opportunity to integrate that shadow. The integration is amazing. You free up space, you gain a superpower. All right. But I do feel that week, I don't know. I this is right before eclipse season. And I think people are going to be upset. I don't know what about, but yeah, it's going to be felt and palpable. It's going to be palpable. We move into May. And I think by May, it's still intense because we are in eclipse season, but I feel like in May, we're tired. We're tired, which is good. Because when you get tired, you surrender. And when you get tired, you get the dreams, you get the intuitive information. Now, you could be a person who gets intuitive information all the time, but if you're a person who's like, no, I need to do, I need to go, I need to make the change, I need to force, I need to push back, this is an opportunity where now it's like, oh, I don't even have the energy. But that's when a lot of the cool feminine aspects come in. And then if you now have been incorporating and integrating this new ability to listen, because a lot of times we're just tired. We just feel tired, we feel depressed, and we're like, this fucking sucks. But when that third eye is a little more open, when you're hearing a little more clearly, you may be exhausted, but man, you may have some psychic ass dreams. Ma'am, you may have some moments where you're like, oh my God, I just realized this, that you have these intuitive flashes and you can catch them, but you have to slow down enough to be able to catch them. So yeah, we're May is so much about learning to listen, like really learning to listen. Mercury's going to be retrograde in Gemini. Mercury is the ruler of Gemini. The North Node is in Gemini. It's going to be squaring Neptune. And Jupiter is going to be, I think Jupiter, yeah, is going to be in Neptune. I mean, in Pisces as well. I mean, squaring Neptune in Pisces and Jupiter is going to be in Pisces. There we go. Sorry. Again, Pisces is deception, illusion, but it's also psychic. It's also hope. Excuse me. It's also higher spiritual energies. So what are you listening to? Are you listening to the media and the fear and the messaging of the fear, confusion, I'm overwhelmed. I'm just an empath and I'm picking up on everybody's shit and I'm not grounded and oh my God, I'm depleted. I'm depressed because I'm picking up on all the energy of the collective? Or are you sad, tired, depressed because you're working out your own shit? One thing to note about depression from an astrological standpoint, a lot of times, not always, obviously there's different levels to everything, but when people are having strong Neptune transits, depression is often very present. We're having very strong Neptune transits collectively. Now, one of the things with these Neptune transits, or if you have strong Pisces energy, strong Neptune, strong 12th house, is you may feel very depressed or physically exhausted, but it's because you're doing a lot of work in the psychic realm. Psychic energy takes up a lot of fucking energy. And you may not know why, and you may feel like, what's wrong with me? And you may feel like, at least I did. I struggled with depression for a long time. I still have my moments. And now, not always, I know when there's days where I need to kind of like push a little bit, but some days I say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna let this be. Because I know, or I trust that I'm doing work in ways that I'm not even necessarily aware of. And then I get the message most of the time. Sometimes I don't. That's okay too. But if you're feeling those feelings, obviously, you know you. If you need to reach out, reach out. But also, like, understand there are dimensions to your energy body that are being worked on constantly. Okay? So, again, compassion for the collective starts with compassion with yourself. Compassion with yourself. Yeah, May, we're tired. We need a retreat. We have, I just think our brains are going to be like rewiring. And that's so much work. You know, it's like if you think about a company and they're redoing their mainframe, they're like computer systems are down for like a day or two or a few days. So like your mainframe's going to be redoing itself. So you may be down for a few days, you know, every once in a while. This is part of psychic, whether you want to call it ascension symptoms, psychic attunement, 5D, what have you. When I started channeling for years before, I was sick all the time. I wasn't sick, like seriously sick. I did have moments, but that was more like trauma stuff coming out. But I was sick all the time. There were food allergies I developed, which now I don't have anymore. I'm still exhausted sometimes, like for 10, 11 hours, I need to sleep. 12 hours, I need to sleep. And then I could do the same thing 2 days later and I'm a completely different person. I'm fine. There's going to be a lot of surrendering in that process. You may feel some of that in March as well. Because again, your nervous system, shifting DNA, not simple work. Not simple work, everybody. We're changing DNA. Okay, we're in June. Let's wrap it up because I want to get to your questions. So June, again, the intuition becomes extremely necessary. Mercury's going to go direct. And we're in Cancer season. So more just intuitive kind of like listening. And let's see. But we are in hardcore retrograde season now. Jupiter's going retrograde. Neptune's going retrograde. We already had Pluto go retrograde. Mercury just was retrograde. You know, again, what is retrograde? Time to reflect, time to check back, time to redo, time to remember, integrate, remember, attach, right? Yeah, I think June is a little more chill until we have the solstice at the end of the month. Mars enters Leo. Venus is going to be in Leo around that same time. We can really be in our feeling because we've been in this feeling space. We're going to be in this feeling space. And the ego, that inner child, is healing. So, you know, they can get uppity. They can act on their insecurities. Be kind with yourself. And let's move to July because July touches more on this. July is really, what's also interesting this year is we have 2 full moons in Aquarius. One at the first degree or at 1, and then one at, I think it's 28 or 29 degrees at the very end. So again, these Aquarian, it's just the Aquarian thing the whole year. Leo is the opposite of Aquarius. Okay. July is spicy, but I think July is positive. I think July is positive. Obviously, somebody's definition of positive or negative is all very relative. And really, there is no such thing as positive and negative. There just is. But in terms of our human perception and how we respond to events, stimulus, information, I think July is a hopeful time. The key is we need to be adults, though. I'm going to say that again. We need to be adults in July. Just because you're right doesn't mean you need to go and punish everybody. Just because somebody's wrong doesn't mean now, I told you so. No, we're not doing that shit. We're not doing that anymore. Nope. Okay. It's very important that not to get caught up in the punishment of others and yourself, even if you're wrong. Okay. Lot of new insights in July. Lot. Mars squaring Uranus. Yeah, again, it's still that drama ego. We could be in a lot of like drama ego politically. We could see a lot of drama ego, drama. Don't get caught up in the drama. Do not get caught up in the drama. Take that child wound and turn it into something. This is an opportunity. These aspects, these hard aspects, are making a very positive aspect to Chiron, the wounded healer. This is prime time, literally taking a wound and going, I'm going to flip it on your head. But that means handling it with maturity and compassion. Nurturing instead of punishing. Treating yourself and others as if they are the 5-year-old who is acting out. If I have a student who's a 5-year-old and they're acting out, and I know it doesn't have to do with me, I'm going to say, oh, something else is going on at home. Right? We have to start looking at each other and other adults like that. When somebody's acting out, it don't have anything to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. July. It has nothing to do with you. Also, it has nothing to do with them. It's your own thing. So when those wounds come up, this is your opportunity to parent yourself. I could say that all year round, but especially in July. All right, Jupiter back in Aquarius in July, and then we go into August. August, we have all these Leo aspects. Again, we're learning to listen. We're getting a lot of squares to Uranus. We're getting squares to Saturn. We're getting the shadow of Aquarius. I think we're going to be shocked around August 22nd when the full moon happens in Aquarius. But we're going to have answers that we perhaps were looking for back in July. I think we're going to be shocked with the information that starts to present itself, especially because we have Mars now in Virgo really working diligently to get clarity. But part of this means we are going to have no choice but to surpass and stop relying on our government and the systems that be, and understand that we really can only rely on ourselves to receive divine truth. Period. And asserting our will in that quest. This is where you get to really exercise your free will. The victim, the story, the drama thing, it's not going to work anymore. I'd say that with full compassion. I do not say that in a blame space, but I do say that in a way that it is just not going to work. It's not going to work. This is Leo season. This is when we want to express. Leo rules the ego. The beautiful thing about Leo is its creative expression. We need the Leo energy. The shadow of Aquarius wants to make everybody the same. That's not what we're trying to do here. That is not that is not Age of Aquarius energy. Age of Aquarius energy, wants to kind of strip the individual of themselves. There is a part of me, my 3D aspect does get concerned with certain aspects of this year from an Aquarian shadow standpoint, because I'm not exactly a fan of big government. And definitely governmental control can be tried to be exercised with the astrology the way that it is. But we do have voices. The people are stronger than any government, number one. Number two, you expressing yourself in your true, authentic self is a powerful force. But that means having God, creator, source, whatever you want to call that divine intelligence, as an ally. That's your ally. Not the story you want to play out, the drama you want to play out, the blame game you want to play out. No, that's not going to work if you want that assistance. And we're going to need assistance. We already have needed it. I don't know about you. I've needed it. I've needed it for I don't know how long. I've always had it, but I've been consciously aware of the fact that I've needed it for a decent amount of time now. And man, when you are stripped of all your, when you are stripped down, that assistance is hella vital. What's really cool is to not have to be stripped down to tap into that assistance. And to just use that assistance to support your creative expression. And then it gets to be this beautiful situation where you're co-creating with divinity. That's super tight, as opposed to having to lose everything, hit rock bottom, and then call on your angels. Like, that's like the story for 2020, right? Like, oh man, I lost my job. Oh, I lost this relationship. I'm rock bottom, rock bottom, rock bottom. Man, rock bottoms fucking suck. I've had a few. Don't do any more rock bottoms if you don't have to, man. Because Uranus is coming around to say, hey, you need another rock bottom to have a divine moment of inspiration? Or you want to just use this energy and like upgrade your light body to 5D and like create some new amazing reality for yourself and for the collective. I'm into option number 2. All right, so August, then we go into September. This is more refining the mind. Mercury's retrograde in Libra. I think we're going to really be, again, relationship. This is like the ultimate pinnacle relationship energy, as far as a Mercury retrograde. Like, as it is, exes come around during Mercury retrogrades. When it's in Libra, which literally rules relationship, it's like your ex is going to holler at you. Just so you know, your ex is going to holler at you in September. Just so y'all know. All right. So you have the opportunity to say, hey, am I still like needing you to give me self-esteem? Or do I honor the divine reflection that you were for me? I appreciate the lessons we learned, but I got to go. Bye. Love you. Yeah. You're going to keep going inward. The media is lit all year because of the squares to the nodes to Neptune. The media is going to lose its mind in the fucking summer. Just so you know, okay? You think the media is bombarding y'all with information now? Yo, summertime 2021. Media is gonna get so creative. Just tune that shit out, man. Create your own social media station. Like, straight up, talking to people, meditating, talking to your guides. That's my social media, is my guides, my angels. Okay. But I do think September we're gonna get some clarity. We're gonna start feeling more clear. It's Virgo season. We're like, yo, enough is enough. And this may have to come through healing crisis. Okay. Full moons, new moons in Pisces, Virgo season, a lot of times do deal with healing crisis. They do. They always do. When COVID started popping up real hardcore, that was during a Virgo full moon. But how do we alleviate this? Surrender, baby. It's time to surrender. Surrender. There we go. September, surrender, September. That's the theme for September. All right. We're almost done. We're in the last quarter. I know it's late. Thank you for bearing with me. This is a lot of information. I feel like surrender is the year. You're damn right. October. But surrendering to the possibility of the future. Right? Because sometimes we surrender because we're in rock bottom, which is an association with the past, which is understandable and real. And sometimes we surrender because we have touched the light, we have experienced it, and it's like, okay, I know you're there. I'm gonna jump in. Because right now we're in this 4D thing, which is 1 foot in 3D, 1 foot in 5D. AKA purgatory. Okay? So, October, a lot of air energy. So now that we know how to talk better after this Mercury retrograde, and well, Mercury comes direct in October. Now that we know we've learned how to communicate better with friends, in relationship, our minds have been refined over the summer because of the bombardment of information. We're in October now. And Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, and Mercury all go direct, which means all systems go. And all systems go means, can you actually handle the truth? Now that you understand the information, can you handle it? Because there's these aspects to Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is all about truth, and Uranus rules the highest truth. So, can you handle the truth? You can't handle the truth. Can you handle the truth? The truth and nothing but the truth. What is your association with truth come October? Like, do you want people to lie to you? Some of us do. It's safer. It's not, but it feels that way. That's not going to fly. That's what happens with anxiety. So anxiety, just a quick touch on anxiety because it deals so much with the nervous system and the mind and the future, is when your body wants to go into resonance with its higher self, but there's a block. And if you've ever had a serious anxiety attack, they always say, oh, breathe, you got to breathe through it. You got to breathe. And sometimes it feels like you can't breathe. Sometimes you feel like you're going to jump out of your entire fucking system and you need to like run, or you need to move the energy first, right? And then the running or whatever gets you to breathe heavy. And then you start coming down, and then you start coming down eventually. But if you've ever been in that state where you almost surrender to the anxiety, it can feel like you're dropping out of a plane. I don't know if anybody's ever felt that feeling. It's like this drop feeling, right? It's that feeling of surrender. What are you surrendering to? The future. You're terrified of the future. Okay? We're anxious because we're thinking about the future. We want to go towards the future, but there's a part of us that's like, oh, I'm not ready to go towards the future. Oh, I don't want to go to the future. I don't want to go to the future. Well, Uranus rules the future. Aquarius rules the future. So we got to be truthful of ourselves, with ourselves. Do you want a better future? You want a better future? Can you handle the truth? Start speaking the truth all the time. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be a dick. That's the South Node of the Sagittarius. Like, you can be truthful and not be an asshole, right? Like, we can still speak truths and be compassionate. And if our truth is like, kind of like super shitty, maybe we got to take a moment. But if we sit with our truth long enough and it's like, wait, no, this is really my truth, and it may offend people and it may make people uncomfortable. Oh, fucking well. Uranus coming through saying, you know what? This is truth, honey. Be with your truth. Not everybody's going to get it. Not everybody's going to like it. As long as you're not hurting anybody, actively hurting anybody, you are allowed to honor your truth. Now we get into November. So last day of October, Mars goes into Scorpio. November, fun Scorpio season. I know everybody I spoke to had a really fun Scorpio season this year. I'm being sarcastic. November, oh, there's so much stuff. I think with November, because the past comes back to do like a final cleaning, and I don't mean final as in finality, like obviously this is always happening. We're always expanding and contracting, expanding and contracting, and going external, going internal. We're doing this dance all the time. But I think because Scorpio season brings so much weight, so much depth with it, and the nodes are also now at 1 degree. They're getting ready to leave. They leave literally like the 2nd or 3rd week of January, and they shift into Scorpio and Taurus. So now we're preparing now. November, December, we are preparing to do the deep, deep, deep work. Okay? This is like reconnaissance mission. Like, you're gonna do the real structural work in your life and in the world, which is awesome. I do think we're going to find some shocking truths. I think if any time disclosure happens, it would be November. And I don't mean necessarily like alien disclosure, although it could be celestial, alien, tech, kind of experimental, scientific, that type of disclosure, because we are dealing with these Aquarian energies. But I do feel like shocking truths could really come up in November. But it's hard for us to imagine the future, because I think we are confronted with the truth. Our own truth, truth of the world, truth of people we've placed trust in, and it can make the concept of the future very difficult. That's okay. Because guess what? You have the present. Okay? Present, 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 present. um, because this is alchemy season right here. All right. Yeah, I think this is when we really understand that we cannot be overly optimistic by putting faith in anyone else except ourselves, in God, the idea of each other, but with clear eyes. And then we move into December, and I think December is actually nice. I think December's hopeful. I do. There's a lot of positive aspects. There's some hard aspects. We could become a little bit over kind of positive. But I just feel like December is now us communicating our findings and these truths that we have walked away with for the next now 6 months, because this is eclipses. So eclipses are 6-month cycles. And it's like, okay, now that you've established these new truths, these new belief systems, perhaps, can you incorporate that into your life and into the world? And can you admit where you were wrong? You know, maybe a truth you held for 25 years. Maybe you were like really devoted to a specific religion and you realized, hey, you know what? That's not for me. Or you were in a marriage and you're like, hey, you know what? This is not my truth. You know, there's a lot of fire energy in December. This is beautiful. Fire can be ghastly and destructive when it's wild. It can be violent, right? But when fire is humbled, it's a candle. It's warmth. I think we have new hope a year from now. Truly. Like palpable hope. Because we finally trust more so. I mean, I'm not saying 7 billion people on the planet, but at least a critical mass, or perhaps the people on this call, you trust yourselves. How can we trust other people? How can we trust a government? How can we trust systems if we do not trust ourselves? Truly. If we don't trust the way our mind works. I don't think a lot of us really think about that, perhaps. Or maybe we do, but we don't talk about it. And when the nodes switch in January of 2022, that's a lot about trust. Because that Scorpio South node is like, where have you been giving over your trust, your power, and those bonds, and now reclaiming back that energy? So yeah, I know that was really long. I thank you so much for rocking with me. I tried to keep it concise, but it's hard to talk about a year, an age, an astrological celestial event, and all of the above in like a short amount of time. And yeah, if you all have any questions.
Thank you. So this is where if anybody's got questions, you use the little reactions button on your Zoom. You can wave your hand and then we'll unmute you so you can ask your questions. That was a lot of information.
I know it's a lot of information, so I also understand nobody has questions because their brains are like, because my brain is lit right now.
Because you answered all of our questions.
I know, there was a part of me, I was like, Jessica, keep it shorter, but this is what came through. And I mean, it wasn't this long when I did it last year. And obviously 2020 was intense, but there's a lot more stuff happening now that ties in with like that fulcrum point. We're at that little like in between point. I feel truly. We're still tearing down, but we're seeing the light. 2020 we didn't see the light. It was all darkness.
Mm.
Obviously you could, I'm not saying you didn't have light in your own lives. Obviously the light is always accessible, but what if we're talking about like collective energy? Even Capricorn energy is barren. It's the dead of winter, you know? So now we're at that solstice point where literally we're starting to see the light little by little. And that's going to just keep increasing.
Okay, well, that sounds amazing. So, well, I guess if nobody has any questions, we'll stop the recording. See if I can. So Kathy, can you help me with that? Stop the recording.